Hello and welcome to Web Development Fundamentals, JavaScript. In this class, we're going to learn how to add more interactive features to our websites and web applications with JavaScript. So before we begin to work with some JavaScript, let's talk a little bit about what JavaScript is and how it fits into web development. First of all, JavaScript is simply a programming language. What is a programming language? Well, according to Wikipedia, a programming language is a formal language that specifies a set of instructions that can be used to produce various kinds of output. It's important to differentiate a programming language from what the other two languages that make up the front end are, HTML and CSS. I know this might sound kind of abstract, but there are certain things that programming languages all do that HTML and CSS do not. I'm talking about explicit calculations, loops, and functions. For our purposes with web development, all you need to know about programming languages is that we need them in order to make our websites interactive. So in order to share with you a few examples of what JavaScript can do, I've got a basic web page open here that we're actually going to be creating in a later video. But for now, we've just got a heading, we've got a button, and we've got an empty div. What I've got in my text file over here is some JavaScript statements that I prepared earlier that we can use to manipulate this page. So if I go into the console here, I can run these JavaScript statements right in the console, and we can see these changes happening instantly. So the first one is going to get the Pokemon button, which is this one, and it's going to hide it. So I will put that in my console, hit enter, and you can see that it's gone. Another thing we can do is change the inner HTML, which is just the content inside a particular element. So this one is going to actually give us some text to our empty div. And as you can see, it now says welcome to the class. And if we go over to elements and look in our inspector, it's updating there as well. The next one, we can also add any number of styling to that div. I'm going to add a 20 pixel margin, and now you can see we have a 20 pixel margin. Finally, I'm going to grab the heading tag and I'm going to change it from Pokemon to Digimon. If I hit enter on that, the change happens instantly. Now, the reason why we must use JavaScript to do this kind of stuff is because the software we use to run JavaScript is our browsers. Remember, the browser is the program you're using right now to browse the internet. Remember, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript run in your browser, and the backend runs on a server. So for our purposes, we just need to think of JavaScript as the programming language for the front end. Anytime you want something to happen without reloading a whole new page, JavaScript is what you need to use. An example I like to use is the web app Google Sheets. See, as I click and drag across multiple columns here, there is feedback happening on the page without me reloading the page. I'm able to change the background color of these cells. I'm able to put in text into cells and change the color of that text, all without reloading the page. Now, this is only possible using JavaScript. And if I was to go over here to this plugin I have and disable JavaScript on the page, and then I reload this page, you will now see that Google won't allow me to use this application because it simply cannot work without JavaScript. The only thing that really works on this page are links, which of course do not need JavaScript. But if I was to click on my home page for Sheets, it gives me this warning again. JavaScript isn't enabled, so it can't be opened. Enable and reload. So as you can see here, not much is possible on this page without JavaScript.
If you take a look around the web, what JavaScript is doing right now, there's manifold things. There's all kinds of things that we do with JavaScript and you mightn't be aware of what's going on there. Take, for example, something like Three.js. Three.js is a 3D library that allows you to do 3D animations in JavaScript, something that in the past we always used Flash for. So JavaScript is a language now that is used for highly creative things rather than just something that is on the web to make it prettier or to make an animated text in the background scrolling around. Things we've done with Flash in the past are now firmly in the space of JavaScript because JavaScript is supported in all the browsers and doesn't doesn't need to be downloaded, it doesn't need to be installed like Flash used to be, QuickTime used to be, or even Silverlight used to be. Other things that JavaScript is doing is actually becoming a part of your day-to-day life. Slack, for example, is probably a tool that you've been using, and Slack is written in JavaScript with HTML and CSS as the other two technologies. So in essence, what we have with Slack is a application that would run in the browser, packaged up in an installer, so you can use them on the desktop, on your mobile phone, and everywhere else. The platform this is based on is called Electron, and Electron allows you to write JavaScript and HTML and CSS and then package it up as an application to get it installed on your operating systems and on the different mobile platforms. One big change in the JavaScript space was when Node came out. Node is a server-side version of JavaScript where you can write anything that you used to write in things like Java, PHP or Python now in JavaScript itself. So what Node allows you to do is write servers, is run your microservices, write anything that you wanted to have in these older, much more complex languages now in JavaScript. Node is installable on every platforms out there, and you will, in most cases, will want to have Node installed because the tooling of JavaScript that are written in Node and allow you to be much more effective as a JavaScript developer is something to be really excited about and something to use. NPM is the package manager of JavaScript. So Node solutions are now written in packages and then can be installed as packages in your operating systems or also used as packages in your other code. As somebody who is old school JavaScript like me, this sounds very complex, and to a degree it is. But as somebody coming from a Perl world or a Java world, this is a very simple and normal way of development. So what we have with NPM and Node is JavaScript leveling up to becoming a real software platform to write huge applications in and to build huge applications put together by reusable components. As people are writing massive applications in JavaScript, the language showed some of its problems. The nature of JavaScript, that it doesn't have any types, made it hard for people who came from other languages to write thousands and thousands of lines of JavaScript and be able to refactor them later on. TypeScript solves that problem by putting a type system on top of JavaScript, and that way makes it much more scalable and much easier to refactor. So if you write huge applications in JavaScript, probably TypeScript is a good idea to think about, and TypeScript also has the benefit of being stricter in its syntax than JavaScript is to show you what your JavaScript errors are while you're actually writing them. I don't want you to get discouraged by looking at all these tools and thinking now, oh my god, I have to understand all of them. These are different options of where JavaScript is being used and where you can become a JavaScript developer or can relearn being a JavaScript developer. Not everybody has to become a Node developer or has to use Electron to build applications. You can still use JavaScript to build normal websites and to package them up in other ways or not touch the server side at all. So what JavaScript is, because of its versatility as a language, it's a pick and mix. It's like you take the things that you want to use, and career-wise, I would actually advise people to find one thing that really gets you excited and concentrate on that one, rather than being a jack of all trades and hoping you have enough time to keep up with all these different implementations, because most likely you will not have that time.
So for this course, I would recommend creating a new folder, either on your desktop or somewhere you can access it. So I'm going to create mine on the desktop, and I'm just going to call this JavaScript. And within that folder, we can save all the examples that we create on this course, and then you've got them to hand if you need them for reference. So within the JavaScript folder, I'm going to create one new folder, and this is going to be called Understanding JavaScript. So the first thing I'm going to look at is where to include JavaScript. So I'm going to create a new folder called Where to Include JavaScript and save that. And then if you go to your text editor, I'm going to use brackets. And then if you drag in the folder that you just created. Okay, so within there we're going to create a new page. So Command or Control N. Save this as the index.html. So to start with, I'm going to put in the basic HTML structure. and I'm going to use a plugin called Emmet, and Emmet is available for most of the popular text editors. So if you're using brackets like me, go into the extensions and then search for Emmet, E-M-M-E-T, and I've already got Emmet installed, but if you don't, just click on the install button. And Emmet is a great plugin which allows you to use shortcuts such as HTML:5 and then press tab, and that creates a new structure for you. But if you're not using Emmet, it's not a problem. Just pause the video and type this out and we can duplicate it for future videos. So in the title, I'm just going to call it Where to Include JavaScript. And then just make a little space after the title, and I'm just going to include the Bootstrap style sheet, which will allow us to make our web pages look nicer. So just search for bootstrap.com and then go to Get Started. And I'm just going to include the Bootstrap CDN, which is the hosted link for the style sheet. So I'm just going to copy the top section, which is the style sheet. So copy there, and then paste that into the head section just below the title. Okay, so now that's all set up, we can take a look at some different ways we can include JavaScript into our projects. So JavaScript can be placed in either the head or the body section. So I'm going to get started, and we need to start by including some script tags. So type out the opening and closing script tags, and all the JavaScript that we type needs to go between these two. And to check everything's working okay, I'm going to get started with a simple alert. So an alert is a pop-up box which appears in the browser and alerts a message to the user. So between quotes you can either use single or double quotes, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to alert JavaScript is working and add a semicolon onto the end of that statement. So if you save that and then go over to the browser, you can see a alert box pops up saying JavaScript is working. So if this is your first time writing JavaScript, congratulations, you've just got your first working script there. So just click on the OK button to get rid of that for now. And if you head back over to the index page, so we mentioned before that JavaScript works in both the head and the body section. So if you just cut this section out of the head and then paste it in the body section, and straight away we've got a change, so we've been taken over to the browser, and again exactly the same thing has happened. We've got the alert box popping up saying JavaScript is working, so that's all fine. So sometimes when we've got a lot of JavaScript on the page, we want to keep it separate from the HTML just to make it more readable and easier to maintain. So we can do that by adding the JavaScript into an external file. So if you create a new page in the project and save that, I'm going to call my file alert, and it needs to have the extension of JS for JavaScript. And then go back over to the index page, and we can link this external JavaScript in the head section. So again, if we open up the script tags, then we need to tell the browser where to find the JavaScript file by using the source attribute. And because our file is in the same level as the index page, we can just type in the file name. So that is alert.js. So now we can get rid of the script tags because we're going to put these in the separate file. So go over to the alert.js, and when we're working in an external JavaScript file, we don't need to include the script tags. We can just start typing the JavaScript. So create a new alert. So between the curly brackets and the quotations, we could put in our message again. So JavaScript is working, and the semicolon at the end. So save that and save the index page and go over to the browser and then refresh. There we go, great. So the alert is working also in the external file. So external JavaScript files are useful for storing JavaScript you may want to use on different web pages, so you don't need to type the same scripts over and over again. You can just link in the file that you want to use on every web page, And as mentioned before, it also separates the HTML from the JavaScript and makes your code more readable and maintainable. The external JavaScript link that we'll place in the head section can also be placed in the body section at the very bottom of your page, just above the closing body tag. And this way the HTML is not blocked by loading scripts, so we can improve page load times. So just save that and refresh the browser again, and you can see everything is still working. Okay, so there's 3 different ways we can include JavaScript into our project.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.